A new epoch in the East. The background of Antony and Cleopatra's alliance in the years leading up to 34 BC. Mark Antony and Cleopatra had established one of the most powerful and controversial partnerships in the ancient world. Their alliance was not only romantic but a calculated union of power, combining the resources of Rome and Egypt. The political ramifications of this partnership were profound, particularly as Antony positioned himself as a rival to Octavian, who was consolidating power in Rome. The legacy of Julius Caesar, Cleopatra's son, Ptolemy XV Philopator Philometor Caesar, known as Caesarion, was believed to be the child of Julius Caesar, though Rome never formally acknowledged him as such. This lineage gave Cleopatra and her son significant symbolic power, as they were tied to the memory of Caesar, who still commanded immense respect and influence in Roman political circles. The donations of Alexandria. A grand spectacle. The ceremony's splendor. In 34 BC, Antony held an elaborate ceremony known as the Donations of Alexandria, which took place in the magnificent city of Alexandria. This grand event was staged to demonstrate the alliance's power and to signal a new era for the eastern provinces. The ceremony was a display of royal majesty, featuring gold-draped thrones, jeweled diadems, and the lavish court of Cleopatra. The division of territories. Antony announced that Cleopatra would rule alongside Caesarion, recognizing him as the rightful heir of Caesar. Cleopatra was declared Queen of Kings, and Caesarion was named King of Kings, effectively positioning them as the rulers of the vast eastern territories that Antony controlled, including Syria, Cyprus, and other key regions. Antony's own children with Cleopatra, Alexander Helios, Cleopatra Selene, and Ptolemy Philadelphus, were also given prominent titles and lands. These symbolic gestures aimed to reinforce Antony's power base and assert the legitimacy of his alliance with Cleopatra over Rome's eastern dominions. Reactions and ripples through Rome. The outrage in Rome. The news of the donations of Alexandria sent shockwaves through Rome. Octavian seized the opportunity to paint Antony as a traitor who had succumbed to the seductions of the East and who intended to carve out his own empire at the expense of Rome's sovereignty. This portrayal deeply resonated with Roman senators and the populace, who were already growing suspicious of Antony's intentions. The Senate's concerns. The Senate's perception of Antony shifted drastically following the announcement. While many senators had once viewed Antony as a loyal Roman commander, his declaration of Cleopatra and Caesarion as co-rulers led them to question his allegiance. The idea that Caesarion could be recognized as Caesar's legitimate heir was particularly alarming to Octavian, who saw this as a direct threat to his claim to power. The significance of the donations. The symbolism of Eastern power. Antony's declaration was more than just a political move, it was a statement of where his loyalties and ambitions lay. By placing Cleopatra and Caesarion at the forefront of the eastern provinces, Antony was asserting that Rome's destiny was entwined with the power and wealth of Egypt. This act symbolized a shift from Rome-centric governance to one that embraced the opulence and legacy of the Ptolemaic dynasty. Cleopatra's vision for the future. For Cleopatra, the donations represented a culmination of her efforts to restore the greatness of Egypt and secure the throne for her children. Her political acumen was on full display, as she successfully positioned herself not just as a queen but as a ruler with influence over multiple kingdoms. The prelude to war. Octavian's propaganda machine. The declarations of 34 BC gave Octavian the ammunition he needed to escalate his campaign against Antony. Through a series of speeches and pamphlets, Octavian described Antony as a man who had abandoned Rome for a foreign queen. He pointed to the ceremony in Alexandria as proof that Antony intended to rule not as a Roman leader but as an Eastern despot. The build-up of hostilities, the propaganda war, and rising tensions between Octavian and Antony inevitably pushed Rome toward civil conflict. Octavian began consolidating support, portraying himself as the true protector of Roman values and traditions. The Senate, already uneasy about Antony's actions, started aligning more closely with Octavian, setting the stage for the eventual declaration of war. The legacy of the donations of Alexandria. The end of an era. The declarations of 34 BC marked a turning point in Antony and Cleopatra's campaign to maintain power. Though they achieved a temporary display of grandeur, the ceremony planted the seeds for their downfall. The years that followed would see Rome embroiled in civil war, leading to the decisive Battle of Actium and the eventual deaths of Antony and Cleopatra. Caesarion's fate. Though Caesarion was elevated to a position of power, his fate after the fall of Antony and Cleopatra would be sealed by Octavian. The boy who had been proclaimed King of Kings was viewed as a threat that had to be eliminated to secure Octavian's uncontested rule over Rome.